if an application is determined to be based on the algorithms that IRCC developed, a low-risk application, then it's going to be approved 99% of the time without an officer really going in and looking at those documents.
Carney's getting his scorecard. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got CBC grading and ranking Mark Carney's progress so far. How do you think he's doing in CBC's eyes? We also got a serious pow-pow threat at multiple airports. We have Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill passing and what that means for Canadians, including the revenge tax that Canadians have successfully dodged. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got table salt with this one. Toronto developers stay afloat borrowing against unsold condos. This madness is starting to happen here. There's a serious crash happening. It's secretly happening in Vancouver as well, as there's realtors freaking out because there's too many listings. And we got this one, the government, because they didn't pass a budget, they just keep writing themselves checks to fund the government. This is ridiculous. As he says here, during the 3-week sitting in the House of Commons, after securing $149 billion via the first budget bill, the government ran out of money again. So they passed Bill C7, another $8 billion before going off on summer break. And what do we see on CBC? We see them praising Mark Carney with his scorecard of how well he's doing.
Now that we're into July, we wanted to check in on some of the promises Prime Minister Mark Carney committed to fulfilling by Canada Day. The green check marks show which promises Carney has successfully met. The yellow suggests that the promises are still a work in progress.
Oh, please. This is not honest reporting, guys. First off, he didn't remove the carbon tax. The carbon tax was set at a sliding scale per ton per year, and he reduced it to 0. He didn't remove the carbon tax. He can increase it tomorrow if he wants because it's still in law. So he did not remove the law. This does not get a green check mark. Removing internal federal trade barriers, also not a green check mark. He promised to remove them, and then it changed to just putting in the legislation. Well, he got legislation in there with the help from the Conservatives. The trade barriers have not all been brought down. They're not removed. This does not get a green check mark. This gets an orange at best. Creating the Canada Strong Pass. Congratulations. Nobody cares about that pass. So yeah, he can get a green check mark on that. GST exemption on new homes. I looked this up. I don't see that this has been done. It's just been promised. It's easy to make promises. I'll become the king of Baba Ganoush. That doesn't mean it'll actually happen. Middle-class tax cut. Pathetic. He promised $800 per family, and then it's kind of like $180 per family. Defense pact with the EU. He's gone over and talked to the European Union. At best here, he's got a bunch of orange check marks, one green check mark with a Canada Strong Pass, which is just a national parks pass, like whoop-de-doo, and review of federal departments gets the big red X. Essentially, Mark Carney has achieved nothing, and he's failed miserably with Donald Trump and his negotiations.
Well, Carney has cut taxes for the middle class. That bill still needs to pass Parliament to make it permanent. Carney has also signed a defense pact with the European Union, but concrete action will require more talks. Then there's one promise not fulfilled, a review of federal departments within 60 days of the election. That seems to be just getting underway now. Let's talk more about it all with the Power Panel, Amanda Alvaro, Andrew Thompson, and Tim Powers. What do you make of that track record, Tim?
What's that? Let me put those up again, Jerry. I'd say, that's probably a B+. He didn't get the A in the gym class of reviewing the federal departments, but...
I mean, if they're going to review them, then honestly review them. Look at all the ones like I just did and do an honest review. They don't do that. They give these lukewarm breakdowns like, oh, you did a pretty good job. This is weak journalism, guys.
Andrew made the point earlier. Look, the Conservatives are actually in a bit of a corner because Mark Carney is the greatest progressive Conservative Prime Minister since Brian Mulroney, right? He's taking a lot of Conservative policy and implementing it, which I think, as a Conservative, I like. That doesn't help Pierre Poilievre. And with the NDP, they're going through their own journey right now and are unable to offer a critique. They're offering a critique, but the critique is not going anywhere with Canadians. So straight F's is an A, but to be fair to him, I think he got a solid B+.
Okay.
I disagree with this Conservative guy. He does not get a B+ whatsoever. A B+ would be green check marks across most of those and it being legitimately honest. I don't know if he just didn't look into the stuff. The only one with the green check mark is that Canada Strong Pass. You can get that pass, nobody cares. And while I do agree it makes it harder for Pierre that Carney keeps ripping off his policies, Carney is slowly going to be losing support from his own followers if he keeps implementing Conservative policies. There's only so far he can go. He can't really start cracking down on immigration, or they're just going to call him a conservative. So Carney's already pushed the edge there with that.
That is the tone, but it's also meeting the moment, and he seems to be doing a very good job of accomplishing that. We'll see on some of the
I don't trust anyone that says meeting the moment. This is one of those mumbo jumbo speak that means absolutely nothing.
these other big files that are sitting in front of him, whether he's able to meet the moment in terms of the ambition and the follow through, which has always been kind of the struggle for the Liberals. But at this point, he seems to be much more successful at it than his predecessor.
It's pretty easy to be better than Justin Trudeau. He's the biggest buffoon in Canadian history. So the only guy who gives him run for his money is Jagmeet Singh.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like the word that Andrew just used, ambition, and it's been used a lot. And I think, people have said he has an ambitious agenda. He has a lot of ambition for the country. I think Canadians are responding to that. I remember sitting in this.
Canadians were duped by that. Mark Carney is very ambitious. It's not for the reasons Canadians think. It's for enriching his own stocks in Brookfield. Why doesn't the media demand that he show what stocks he owns? What kind of journalism is this? This is so weak, guys. They have this power position here and they refuse to do hard-hitting journalism because it affects their own bank accounts. Everyone is so self-serving in this media. It's absurd.
Chair, may have been with Tim, it may have been with others, and they said, it's insane for him to make these promises. No, I'm not saying you said this, Tim, but somebody said it was crazy to make these promises that it could be done in 60 days, that, success.
He didn't do any of these things in 60 days except for the Canada Strong Pass. You want to give him a big thumbs up and a gold star for it? By all means. But nobody cares about that pass. It doesn't help Canadians' lives. It's not helping a mother who can't feed her children. It's not helping students, seniors, workers be able to afford the cost of living, which is out of control. Housing prices, food prices. Congratulations on the Canada Strong Pass. It's not helping Canada, though. Aside from that, he has done nothing.
Governments previously have tried to do things like remove internal trade barriers between the provinces and have been unsuccessful at getting.
Like the dairy cartel and supply management, that's a pretty big internal trade barrier that they just put into law. They did the opposite of opening up the trade barrier. They enshrined it in law so the dairy cartel in Quebec gets full control.
Getting that done, and yet here we are 60 days in. I think Canadians are responding to this speed, this efficiency, this really, it's sort of like a deliberate take on how to govern. I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to get it done. And
I don't deny that because Canadians aren't paying attention. They work their butts off all day. They see a couple clips online. They're like, oh yeah, that Carney guy really doing a good job because someone on CBC said so. They don't look into it. They're not properly checking that they're actually getting duped and used in this situation. And just look at the honest facts that he is not achieving the stuff he's setting out to do. And not only that, he's getting destroyed by Donald Trump in the negotiations.
whether or not you get everything through the finish line by July 1st, it's also optically what people take away from it. Their progress is being made and people.
Yeah, that doesn't matter though. Saying you're going to do something and actually doing it are two different things. It is all optics though. I agree with that. Optics are everything. If you can convince someone that you're doing something, you're great for Canada versus actually being great for Canada, that doesn't matter. What people believe about something or someone is more important because that's what they're going to vote on. Sadly, I mean, it's just another day in Canada when you have stuff like this. Hamilton police warning the public after SA suspect released. This 22-year-old monster released on bail. Congratulations, Liberals. Another monster out on bail, ready to take another victim. And Liberal women seem to be okay with this. They want these monsters running around. Why else would you vote for this? Meanwhile, Ottawa City Hall will be flying the American flag on July 4th to mark Independence Day. I'm curious what the backlash from this will be. As this comment says here, the elbows up folks must be feeling rather confused now that Mr. Carney has caved pretty much to all of Trump's demands on defense, on border security, trade policy, as well as everything. The only domino that hasn't fallen is the dairy supply management. Now, on the eve of July 4th, Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill has just passed last night. It went back and forth, didn't look like it was going to pass. It did pass. Let's go over the implications of that on Canadians. But first, something very important that I've mentioned before. Donald Trump had this revenge tax on Canadians, basically anyone international. This was in response to the DST. Well, the DST is gone, and so is the revenge tax. So everyone can take a deep breath on that because this was the one that would bring in tax rate, the 60% tax rate. If you worked with companies that were in the US, you'd just be getting annihilated. Now, what's interesting about this, though, is this was not removed because Mark Carney removed the DST. It wasn't a concession that Trump did in regards to that. He dropped this before the DST. The Treasury Board in Congress on Thursday moved to kill a so-called revenge tax that was set to raise taxes on foreign investment and spooked Wall Street and global business leaders. This also anyone who worked with American American businesses. If you do any sort of digital media, marketing, any sort of stuff like that with American companies, you would get dinged a huge tax, and then you'd get taxed again in Canada, and your tax rate would be over 50% at a base level. And you add in provincial tax, like in British Columbia, and you're already up over 60%. Like, this was some seriously bad news. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Thursday announced a deal with G7 partners that would exclude U.S. companies from some global taxes in exchange for dropping Section 899 of Republicans' One Big Beautiful Act. So this was in regards to the G7 partner meeting. This had nothing to do with Mark Carney dropping the DST, even though Trump brought this in because of the DST. The primary goal of this revenge tax was to target anyone who held stocks in America and then taxing that on top of anyone who worked with American companies. So this is officially gone now, thank goodness. But this just says a lot that Donald Trump was using this to negotiate, and they made a deal with the G7 partners, so he dropped it. It just proves Donald Trump will budge when there's the right deal to be made. We got Brian Lilly posting this. The big beautiful bill has passed. We're going to break this down.
The yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
So this raises the debt ceiling in America another $1 trillion, which is why Elon Musk is pissed off. And there's a bit more beef going on between Trump and Elon now. Trump coming out and saying that Elon better watch out if they put the Doge program on Elon's companies, then he's going to be in trouble. It's kind of nasty. We're not going to get into all that drama, but we're going to take a look at the One Big Beautiful Bill itself. Section 112-105, excise tax on remittance transfer. So these are only the things that affect Canadians. We're not obviously going through the whole thing. So anyone who has family members in America that sends money to a Canadian family member, potentially this would increase a tax on that transfer. We've got this one here, permitting premium tax credit only for certain individuals. This affects Canadians who work in America who have health benefits in America. You may lose those benefits, or you may lose some benefits. We also got this one, requiring exchange verification on eligibility for health plan. Some Canadians, once again, working in America may see delays, administration problems regarding healthcare.
What do you think those conversations sounded like, Eric, between some of those reluctant Republicans, and there weren't many of them, but between them and either the president or his surrogates to say, look, guys, whatever you think, you better fall in line?
Well, not only that, but one of the things that the president is actually saying and actually using as to why these deficits will not happen is he is saying that the money where the gaping hole will be in terms of the deficit, that will be made up by revenues coming in through tariffs. Now, we know that Donald Trump's signature economic policy has been the tariffs that he has placed on other countries, specifically Canada. And we know now the president has been using that, touting that as how he will close much of the deficit as a result of the passage of this legislation. And clearly, many Republicans actually bought that. And so while the president is saying that there are going to be a number of trade deals that will be made, we're still seeing that the president is heavily reliant on this idea of tariffs, and that being a key conduit to actually bring in revenue. And quite frankly, that just hasn't panned out. But nevertheless, he was able to sell that to a number of these Republicans to get the votes that he needed.
Now,
This is a key point here. So if Donald Trump is banking on this, maybe he doesn't want to give up the tariffs at all because he wants to take that money in from Canada, from other nations. Maybe there isn't room for him to move on that. He's just going to keep tariffs on us regardless. It's hard to know what's going to happen here, but I mean, his bill has passed. There's a bunch of spending in there. He needs to pay for it. Hard to know what's going to happen here. And the most important one here is this one. So they've terminated all the clean vehicle credits off of commercial vehicles, EV chargers, all of it. That's what all of these are. So this puts a lot of pressure on Mark Carney. As I showed in the morning video, the EU is now dropping 90% of the industrial carbon tax, the CBAM program, on their industrial sector, which was Mark Carney's backbone for his entire plan. And he was going to lean on the EU and saying like, well, look what they did over there, so we should do that here. And now they can't do that. You've got Donald Trump pulling all these clean EV tax credits in America. And it's funny because Elon Musk wanted this to happen. He says that the price of Teslas, the value of Tesla as a company, is going to go up. He's now received his wish. push, but in Canada, we still have these tax credits artificially making EVs cheaper. Well, Mark Carney can't point to America. He can't point to the EU. He can't point to other countries now and saying, well, look, they're doing it. Now we look like a one-off country that isn't doing the right thing for its own citizens. Now, we've known this for a long time if you're conservative, but the average Canadian not really paying attention. If things keep going as they are and Canadians are forced to buy EVs, we're going to have some serious problems in this country. And that's where we're getting Canadian Auto Manufacturers Association, the presidents, CEOs. They're all pissed off with Mark Carney keeping Trudeau's EV mandate in place. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the grid. We don't have charging stations. It's nonsense to force this on the people. Never in history has there been a major technology been removed, another one forced on the citizens. It all comes down to money. Brookfield is lined up to make a pile of cash off of forcing EVs. Mark Carney has $13 million in stock options and probably a whole bunch of stocks. This is an obvious conflict of interest. Mark Carney needs to disclose his conflicts of interest immediately because it looks very likely that he is not working in Canada's best interest. And that brings us to our next story, as someone has posted here. How much do you want to bet? We've got bomb threats made at multiple Canadian airports. Chris Stacey posting this one immediately. You can see here, evacuated due to, I don't want to say that too many times here, but this is not just one airport. We're talking multiple major Canadian airports.
We are tracking security incidents that have affected a number of airports across the country, including here in Vancouver. CTV's Yasmin Gandam is standing by at YVR Forest this morning. Good morning, Yasmin. And this has to do with bomb threats made this morning. What else are you learning?
Yeah, that's right. NAV Canada says besides Vancouver, it was also made aware of bomb threats at other Canadian cities, Ottawa, Edmonton, Montreal, Winnipeg, and Calgary, forcing a temporary ground stop at some of those affected airports. Now, NAV Canada says employees are safe, but some sites were evacuated and a temporary ground stop was put in place while an investigation was carried out. It says it conducted a threat assessment and service is resuming as normal at the airports. YVR says the airport is aware of the concern, but is reassuring passengers that they are safe and a thorough assessment was conducted. The airport says in a statement, safety and security are the top priority for passengers. And here at YVR, operations are pretty much back to normal.
You know, if safety and security were the top priority, the Liberals wouldn't allow people to come into our country unvetted, unfettered, just flooding in. We have 17,600 people who have previous criminal convictions and we don't even know what they are because they're hiding them from us. And literally the next day, we have threats of these pow-pows at multiple major Canadian airports. We are not a serious country anymore. We are run by gangsters and goons. Back in 2023, the government was seeing way too many asylum seekers, so they waived the screening and went to an AI system. Now we have flooded Canada with people with criminal backgrounds, criminal convictions, and terror lords. So are we surprised that we're seeing pow-pow threats at airports now?
Was to help reduce a massive backlog of over 2 million visitor applications in the system.
Because they were facing such large backlogs, the government came up with an internal policy of waiving the eligibility assessment.
So they were less stringent about reviewing some of these applications to come here on temporary visas because they just wanted to get through the backlog.
Yeah, that sounds real safe. That's real secure.
If an application is determined to be based on the algorithms that IRCC developed, a low risk application, then it's going to be approved 99% of the time without an officer really going in and looking at those documents.
And just look at the number of people who claimed asylum at airports in the first 8 months of this year. They haven't leveled off. In fact, 2024 is on track to exceed last year's numbers.
So what happened is usually when people come to Canada as a refugee, you can't just fly in. People flying in would have to prove that they're coming for a vacation, they had money to support themselves, they were going to stay somewhere, they had a hotel or something booked. The government waived that. People started flying in, claiming refugee status, and because they weren't screening anyone, we've had all of these people come in with criminal backgrounds, and the Liberals don't seem to care about that. That's why we have terror lords in the streets running around, the Hammer brothers, breaking into houses, stealing cars, home invasions, and now we have pow-pow threats at airports.
But people arriving by air is just one part of this equation. Asylum claims are also increasingly coming from people who are already here.
This video goes on to talk about people taking advantage of the education system, signing up for some sort of schooling and then just landing here, not going to school, and then claiming refugee status. We already know about all of that stuff. Getting back to this, all these airports being shut down, this is just going to further make problems across Canada. We already have a bunch of Canadian citizens hating on South Asians coming here, when really it has nothing to do with where the people are coming from, the fact that we're getting so many people from India. It's the quality of people. Our immigration system has been the best in the world for decades, under the Liberals, under the Conservatives, because no one changed it. It was the best system. They left it alone. Justin Trudeau came in, broke the system, allowed criminals to come in, and unfortunately, most of these criminals are coming from India and South Asia. And now that community is getting targeted as this major problem, when in reality, we get amazing people, bright people, smart people who contribute to our GDP from India, from Sri Lanka, from the Philippines, from Hong Kong, from England. But because most of the immigrants coming in today, the refugees, the asylum seekers, the temporary foreign workers are coming from India, it's creating a bigger cultural problem, because virtually every person breaking into a house, robbing a car is from India, which is then creating this divide in our country among people who look like they're from India. Maybe they were born here, maybe not. And this can be easily fixed. It has nothing to do with any of the countries. It has to do with the Liberals' policy on cracking down on crime. It's the fact they don't crack down on crime. If somebody broke into someone's house with hammers, like that would just happen recently, you had 5 guys or 4 guys break into someone's house with hammers. A dad pulled out an empty, unloaded pew-pew, a double-barrel pew-pew, and scared the guys out. If they caught those guys and put them in jail each for 5 years, then we wouldn't be seeing criminals coming over and wanting to commit crimes here. But everyone knows that it's easy to rob people here. There's no consequences. So we're bringing in more and more. They're all attracted to our country because the Liberals won't punish these people. You got a buffoon like Sean Fraser saying they're going to take a close look at their justice bail reform system and make sure it's all buttoned up and it's tightened up. You know, that nothing will change unless these gangsters start breaking into Sean Fraser's house or into Justin Trudeau's house, Mark Carney's house, Anita Anand, Melanie Joly. If there's 10 goons kicking in the doors there stealing her car, maybe then the laws would start to change. But unless they get affected by it, they clearly put it in for a reason, to cause havoc, to maybe they're making money off the back end by stealing the cars and sending them to Africa. Do they own some company down there? Do they have kickbacks? Why are they imposing this absolute madness on us? It's unknown. They clearly do not like us. They don't serve us. They don't care about Canadians. Otherwise, they would punish these criminals. It's important for people to not direct their anger towards South Asians, because in reality, if you bring in 5 million South Asians, there might be only a couple thousand doing all the crime, and you've got 4-point-something million that have nothing to do with the crime. But this is just one problem among many who obviously have too much immigration, and all the crime is not getting punished, and now we end up with, pow-pows at airports.